My background of getting into corporate events is very different to many people. I actually started way back at university. I actually thought I was going to be an investment banker or go into something in finance because I did economics. But while I was at uni, I started organising student parties and raves, and I really enjoyed it. We'd hire out venues. We would get DJs booked, we'd get some flyers printed and then sell tickets and make money from it. And I really enjoyed living and dying by my own decisions. And I decided to carry that on for a year. I'd take a year out rather than going into a job. And then that just became 2 years and 3 years and so on. I'd started organising events for more professional people, and it just kind of went on from there. And then someone explained to me what corporate events were, that I wouldn't have to actually market the events or get the people to come along. All I'd have to do is find the venue and organise the actual event. And I thought, well, that's a lot easier then, because the hard bit for me was actually getting people to come along to the event. The easy bit was organising it. And when I entered the corporate events world, it was very apparent to me that it was a very white middle class industry. And even with the best intentions of not wanting to be judged or distinguished by my race, it was hard to ignore the fact that I was different. And I always wanted my work to do the talking, and my parents always taught me that just work really hard, get your head down and make sure that you do really good work, and in the end that will shine through. And let me be straight with you that I love this industry so much. I have really loved waking up every morning for the last, whatever it's been, 15 years or whatever it's been, owning my own events business, and it's my passion. And I don't want people to think that I'm necessarily here to have a moan, but I just want to let you know about some of the experiences that I've had. Even when I think back as starting as a promoter, and we'd organise parties in the City of London, and some of the issues that we faced from police and venues, and I'd even go as far as calling it structural racism. It was a lot more difficult for an Asian man like myself or a black man to hire a venue in London. The police were very clever. They came up with a form called a 696 form, which was, putting it straight, a subtle form of racism. They would ask your name, your DJ name, the kind of music you'd be playing, and then the police would be on your case and put pressure on the venues not to hire the venue out to you. Police would decide that if you're an Asian or black promoter, that you're essentially going to be higher risk. They would say that, oh, you're going to be playing urban music or hip hop music, so that means that your events are going to have a higher propensity to be more violent or higher risk. Yet if you're a white promoter and you're playing urban music or hip hop music, it's likely to be seen as being a cool event to be at. So police could reject your events on that basis, or they put a lot of pressure on venues not to hire the venue out to you. So they'd say things like, well, all right, if anything happens at that venue on that night, then we're going to look into your license. So that would ensure that when you go and meet venues, there'd always be a barrier between you and the venue straight away, and you'd have to really work hard to try and convince a venue to let you hire out that venue on a particular night. Whereas if you're a white promoter, it would be easy to walk into the West End without that barrier there and just put forward your proposal and hire out a venue. Fast forward a few years, getting into corporate events. I've had a number of times in my career where I've attended event buyer conferences, and I go to these conferences and straight away people would ask me, oh, so you do Asian weddings then? And because I'm Asian, they'd pigeonhole me into that category when I don't do Asian weddings. So what they were trying to say was, I think in many ways that if I'm Asian, then that's the only thing that I'm capable of doing. Now, let me be straight. Organising an Asian wedding is a very hard task. And what I've never really understood is why more suppliers from the Asian wedding industry, or Jewish wedding industry, or black wedding industry aren't doing more corporate work, because the lighting, the sound, the AV, the production that goes into an Asian wedding, if you go into the Park Lane Hilton or Marriott on Park Lane and see some of the Asian weddings there, it will blow your mind away. And I don't understand why more of those suppliers don't get opportunities in a mainstream corporate event. But at the same time, it wasn't my niche. It wasn't something that I did. And it always baffled me as to why people would straight away assume that the only way that I could get into corporate events or get into the events industry was by doing Asian weddings. Now, I don't want to have to change my name. I don't want to change my company name. I don't want to change the friends I hang out with. I don't want to have to change who I am ultimately to try and fit in to the industry. But what I did reflect on for a long time was that I felt that even trying to pitch for work was more difficult for me because I didn't look like a lot of the people in the industry. That might have been my own perception of it. However, for a long time, what I thought was that I'm not going to go and pitch for work because straight away people would not associate somebody who looks like me with organising corporate events, because I don't look like a traditional corporate events planner. And in the end, what I did was made sure that my brands that I've got for my different parts of my company would stand out more, and they would do the talking along with the good work that we did. And I put a lot more resources into technology and moving online. I just want to make something clear that no one in the events industry has ever been overtly racist to me. In the way that I endured racism at school while I was doing my paper round, or when I was just growing up generally in the area that I was brought up in. But that's not to say that structural and institutional prejudices don't exist. For example, there are structures in place, I believe, that prevent those from BAME backgrounds really getting those top jobs in events. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to not wanting to change a system that many perceive not to be broken, and also a lack of education and understanding. And that isn't just an events industry problem, that is a society problem. People, when I was growing up, associated people who looked like me with only being taxi drivers, corner shop owners, or doctors, and that was it. And that's kind of the society that I was brought up in. And yet things are slowly changing, but we've got a long way to go to change the prejudices, stereotypes and perceptions of those from BAME backgrounds. And I think one of the reasons that the events industry has suffered so much from this current COVID crisis isn't just because of the obvious, which is there are no events, but it's also the fact that we aren't a diverse industry. And I mean diverse in culture and diverse in thinking. Many companies were too focused on the status quo because things, as I said, weren't broken, and didn't really focus on technology in the future. And the industry is going to be forced to be a very, very different place going forward. But I wonder if it will be more diverse as well. And on the surface, people generally think that they personally might not have a prejudice or have worked hard to be more diverse, which is fine and fair enough. But the way that we've all been brought up in societies, we're indoctrinated every single day with the messages that we see since the day that we've pretty much been born. and we're all born with some form. We all grow up with some form of prejudice, and that is something that we all need to collectively work harder at educating ourselves about, and ensure that we do our utmost to understand people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different ways of thinking. And just to finish off, I'm reminded of a saying that diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. Thank you for listening.